Hello, everyone. My name is Rendy. I'm a beginner architect based in Surabaya, Indonesia. Um, well, in this session, I would love to share with you at least what I thought about Jakarta regarding what the brief that Gonzalo already explained and asked to me. Well, please do not expect, a super exact data and a high expectation because all of these next slides, I will just share with you like from what I understand about Jakarta and also my own experiences as a person who ever worked and lived in my capital city, Jakarta. Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to start from this image. Well, uh, this 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 moment was captured by my friend during the quarantine times at the beginning of the pandemic. It was around 2020, the beginning. Well, well, this is a pretty much a sarcastic image that already become an annual event in Jakarta. Um, Well, please take a look between two contrast conditions. There are a dichotomy between high society and also the lower ones. The floats has been a major issue almost since forever in the capital until now. And for your information, Indonesia has like a half year period of summer and also a half period of rainy season. And two of them are pretty much extreme. Um, so the social gap and also the floods are the major issue that happen in Jakarta. So if you can see how the lower society doesn't have um, many facilities to reduce the flood, and as you know, in contrast, uh, in contrary, the high society area pretty much still comfortable with their life going on in the middle of the floods. So the social gap and also the natural issue is um, quite become the major issue in this city, even though this is a capital city. You know, they're supposed to have like a main good system in the country, but no. So that's what happened. Like to introduce the one image to introduce how this city looks like, And well, this is the map of Jakarta, and the city that has over than 10 million citizens on it. Well, if you take a look, the huge development are growing between the southern area until the north. So this is, as you can see from the red three dots, um, the southern parts are known as a residential part of Jakarta, but now they're developing into the central business district and also the commercial area. They built many shopping mall and the office building and etc. The middle is supposed to be the government area, and the north supposed to be the industrial and the historical area. But it seems like they're developing the three of this area to become like the central business district or CBD, or also the shopping malls. And regarding to the commercials, they grow, they're not centralizing, but they, as long as they have the opportunity to have like a cheap price of the land, they will grow and develop a new commercial space there. That's how it works in Jakarta. Right now, they're also expanding to the outskirts of the city. They're also expanding to the western and the eastern part of the city, which is still nowadays the development is still growing in Jakarta. So if you take a look at these two pictures, basically what I explained before, how the towers and the skyscrapers and the shopping malls are growing in the middle of the infrastructures and also in the middle of the residential area. It's not like centralized to one area, but instead of that, they just growing up. You know, imagine there are some like a housing in here, and suddenly there are a huge tower in the middle of it, uh, like this. Also, I mean, this is the residential part, and this is the infrastructure, the highway, the intercity highway, and suddenly there are, the office buildings, the office towers, and also the shopping malls are spreading everywhere. This is pretty much what happened in Jakarta, and I also imagine that it also happened in many metropolitan and suburban uh, cities, such as Jakarta, maybe in Rio de Janeiro, or maybe in Mexico City, etc. So that's what happened. Well, in this presentation, I'm choosing these three topics to represent the problem as well as the condition in the city of Jakarta. There are natural conditions as to understand how the climate and the problem grows in the city. There are also public spaces in Jakarta as to learn about the people culture, and also the infrastructures to might able to give you what actually the city needs. Hope these three things are enough as a good representative to represent the problem and the information for you to work on the project. Well, let's start with the first topic, the floods. When the great floods hits every single year, the developments of the real estate sometimes interfere in some important structure that, have the function itself to reduce the floods, but instead of sparing that land to become like the function to reduce the floods, they build something. They build a huge building, like a tower, maybe like a shopping. So this picture is located in the center of the central business district in the central of Jakarta. So basically, usually the big flood also hit in this area. Can you imagine? This is the high society part of the city, but still undeniable that the flood also spreading in this area. Can you imagine? In this is the main road of the central business district in Bundaran Hotel Indonesia, or Bundaran HI. The flood in this area shows that how this damage of natural weather is also caused not only in the lower part of the society, but also the higher part of the society, which is in this in this high society area. This is also in the northern part of Jakarta. It's called Pantai Indah Kapuk, or PIK. This is located. This new development is located in the north of Jakarta. Well, they built the developments of skyscrapers above the reclamation island in the north seashore. That's supposed to be the biggest mangrove forest in the city. The mangrove forests are usable to stabilize the sea level or the tide of the sea. And also, it has a function as a barrier for another bigger disaster such as tsunami. That's the important. Every single tropical city, I mean, a city with a tropical season, to have like a centralized mangrove forest nearby the open sea of the shore, which is in Jakarta, located in the north. But instead of sparing that mangrove forest, they have the one of the huge reclamation in the country to build another residential area. I mean, the luxurious apartment, office building, and shopping malls again and stuff. So instead of sparing this area into the mangrove forest, they promised to the government to build like the giant seawall, like the one they have in Venice in Italy. But they haven't built it yet. So that's what happened about the floods and the natural condition in Jakarta. And also another natural condition that happen is the pollution in regarding to the traffic jam. Well, for everybody who ever lives and works in Jakarta, probably already and understand this very well. You know, every single day, especially during the weekend, in the highway, sometimes the vehicle will stuck on the traffic jam for hours. In the highway, the name of the highway is supposed not to be stuck in the traffic jam, but that's what happened. So because of these many traffic jam area in all over the city, the traffic jam contributes on the biggest pollution that happened in Jakarta. So I'd like to show you these two images. These two images are taken during the after office hour. These are pretty much caused by, with, I mean, because of the controls of the private vehicle market are not the balance with the development of the public transport and infrastructure development. I mean, until nowadays, it's still commonly easy. It's commonly easy for every single citizens to have private vehicle. Like for example, is the growing population is too big, the government is not supposed to make the citizens very easy, or the price is cheaper to buy a private vehicle. But instead of building like a good infrastructure or building like a new public transportation, they prefer uh, just to uh, just to to sell the market of the private vehicle become cheaper and cheaper. So that's what happened. So every single person in Jakarta might have like a more than one private vehicle. Like for example, like one family contained with 5 person could have like 10 cars, for example. That's what happened. So the kind of things becoming worse and worse, and making all the traffic jams everywhere instead of building more and more public spaces and good infrastructures. That's what happened. Okay. And also another problem of the natural condition is from the slums. I mean, the overpopulation doesn't happen only with the high society and the development for the high-end lifestyle, but also with the lower education people and also with the lower economy immigrants. This causes many wild developments, the slums area in the Banks River of Jakarta. So uh, these two pictures is it's called the Kali Ciliwung in Bank River of Jakarta. I mean, it's also happened in other megapolitans such are Rio de Janeiro and Mexico City. The extra growing of the population creates like the unofficial developments in some identified or uncertified uh, land of the city. Some of them are choosing the place in the Bank River and Jakarta. So the government are trying to relocate this uncertified housing, you know, the illegal housing. They're trying to relocate them in the last couple of years, but their area is always hit because their area is always hit by the flood during the river high tide. But most of them are refusing it. This is what I call the lower educational people. These people are refusing to move to the social housing apartments by the governments because they think the tower, the apartment, uh, or the high-rise building is not a house. I mean, the paradigm of the house is supposed to be like, you know, small building with a roof, with a tilt roof. Even though with the flood, it will be okay because you know the house is like this. It's not like a tower. So so they this thing is the cause why the government cannot relocate them. Every time the government want to relocate the slums area, the demonstration or the demonstration starts, I mean, the protests are everywhere because the amount of the people um, are many of them, you know. So that's what happened. So instead of relocate them, the government finally provide them to build the expanding of the bank rivers with the road on it, you know. Um, the bank rivers are supposed to be the water crown. I mean, during the heavy raining, every single city with a tropical weather is not supposed to have like a housing development in the bank river because of that, because they're supposed to be the water ground to reduce the floods. So, but this is what happened in Jakarta. Even the government should provide the slums to live in the bank river. So it's a little bit different with the European country, for example. The bank river sometimes it's also become part of the residential area, like, but this is not supposed to happen in the country with the tropical forest, with the tropical weather that has like a heavy rain for the 6 months every year, you know. So okay, uh, let's moving to the topic of the public space in Jakarta now. Um, the developments made Jakarta to have 200 shopping malls inside the city, instead of green area, instead of open air spaces, and also instead of public spaces. Well, in theory, a good city should have at least 30% of the green area, but Jakarta only have 8% of the green area. So the size of the buildings makes the city have less of the water ground to save the rainwater discharge and makes the floods even got worse every single year. Well, the shopping mall usually built as a huge building. I mean, it's a mixed-use building, a shopping mall with towers. So, but the problem is there are many of them inside the city. Uh, it, it makes the city doesn't have the chance to have the water crunch during the heavy rain to relocate the water discharge, and the floods getting worse because of that. So that's what happened. And these pictures are at least like a few mall buildings in several areas in Jakarta. I mean, could you imagine those buildings and under 100 more spreading all over the city? I mean, somehow in one area, they even have like 2 or 3 shopping malls. I mean, you can see how the scale of the building, you know, and the design, and the design that somehow not aesthetically executed. Well, the mall basically is one of the huge buildings that serve with many commercial spaces, which are the shopping needs and also the food and beverage needs. The mall also providing a huge indoor space with full of air conditioning climate inside. You know, the air conditioning. Uh, this reason why the citizens is pretty much preferring to hang out or to be inside the mall buildings instead of the open air public spaces, because during the day it's too hot. So so every single citizen or every single person are used to hang out in in a place inside the air conditioned building. So this is the common thing happening in Indonesia. So because of the weather. So with the number of shopping malls, the government of the city couldn't give enough access for the public transportation to reach the area. So instead of using public transportation, the citizens are prefer using the private vehicle again. This reason also caused the traffic jam because all of these malls, I mean, not providing by the public transportation. I mean, you have to drive your own car or your motorbike to reach these malls. That's what happened. Why the traffic jam also happened during the weekend. So the traffic jams built also big population back again from the previous problem. Well, um, Well, nowadays there are some of the new developments of the public space. Some of them are working, some of them happen to be organically, suddenly, and some of them become just like, cliche, and some of them are pretty much failing. So uh, I will tell you like a few cases of the public spaces that the government tried to develop in Jakarta. I mean, like for example, this one, RPTRE. Well, basically, it means like the area that pretty much fun and proper for the children. I mean, that's the cliche, right? I mean, that's the name. Um, well, I also got involved to this program from the government while I was working in Jakarta. I did involve the upper left image project, this one. Um, it was built above the area that used to be a biggest prostitution building in Jakarta. Hmm. Well, I didn't like it actually. Well, especially most of the projects, I didn't like it. Why? Because if you take a look, it's not even close that it's not even close as a proper building. If you could see the materials, how the design, sometimes it feels like it's not fully well executed. It's more like temporary, I think this building will decay in I don't know, in 5 years. Well, that's what happened in Indonesia. The government, they only want to build during their period of time. I mean, I don't care if somebody else will be the next leader. Uh, they will fix this area again. I mean, it's not like they think about the future, how this kind of public spaces will will uh, will be good as a building in the future for another couple of years. It's not like that. I mean, as long as I have a role as a government, I will bid whatever. I don't care if it's bad. I don't care if it's decaying in a few years. I don't care. They basically will. Um, they basically only just doing things during their era. That's what happened. The vision is not to create a great public space. The vision is only like just to do some things during their role. You know. Um, Also, there are many politics happen in the project of the government, the corruption and stuff. So sometimes the building is not well executed. The materials are reducing. Some of them are not designed by architects. So that's what happened. So that's what. Um, well, this is one of my favorites. It's called the Eco Park. During the pandemic, the people have to understand the needs of the open air. The open air activities and public space like jogging, biking are pretty much activities that happened during the days of the pandemic. I mean, Tibet Eco Park is one of my favorite, despite to uh, not creating too huge scale of the developments. The design is pretty much well executed. I mean, the idea of the design is to create the walking and biking route in the middle of the city forest in the southern Jakarta without without destroying the forest itself, without building like a huge uh, structure. That's the simple idea that I like. And then there are Old Town Jakarta and Joran in the IK. The northern Jakarta, as I told you, is the historical part of the city. I mean, the historical developments during the Dutch colony. I mean, happened like almost a century ago. They're located in the center of the old town of Jakarta. They call it as the old town of Jakarta. And the piazza of this museum is called Museum Fathahillah. It's one of the iconic buildings that built by the Dutch before. Uh, Nowadays, its function is it's a great public space, even during the day, even the weather is hot. Um, because of the monuments, right? And also as well as the picture below, which is Pancoran Peak. They built like the new Chinatown district in Pantai Indah Kapuk or PIK. It's called Pancoran. The placemaking of the cultural and historical area are pretty much effective for the public spaces uh, because they also provide the space to hang out and to eat. So because of the iconic things, the piazza and the space are pretty much working as a good public space. And it's pretty much crowded, not only during the weekend, but also the whole week. And there are also some of the new public spaces and activities that I think are well executed. Maybe it's going to, I mean, some of them are happening organically, some of them are well developed by the government and also by the businessman. But you could also find it on Google. Maybe I will just mention it here, like for example, by the clockwise, right? The M block space is the area in the southern part of Jakarta. Is basically the new alternative to create a commercial space without developing a huge shopping mall. For example, it basically a commercial area and food and beverage area using the old buildings, the old government buildings. So it's a placemaking by adapting, reusing the old buildings. And the second one is Hutan Kota by Plataran. It's the new resort hotel in the middle of the city forest. Some of them, some of the open spaces are free to be accessed by the public with a very nice skyscraper views, like this one. And then this one is Italian Fashion Week at the Duku Atas station. So when the government built the new train route from the airport to the city, the streets area of the train station is creating like an organic public space, you know. Nowadays, there is this phenomenon called Chitayam Fashion Week. Basically, it's like the same phenomenon like in the one in Tokyo. It's called Harajuku area. So many people came and dressed. They're doing like a fashion show there, like organic fashion show in the street. So nowadays, this area suddenly become very much crowded. So all the commercials and all the food and beverage brand are really trying to going enter this station. And then the last one is Sarina Concept Mall. Well, Sarina Concept Mall basically was the oldest shopping mall in Indonesia. I mean, the government decided to revitalize this oldest shopping mall in the country. But another phenomenon happened. I mean, the people now preferring to hang out in the outdoor open theater that provided by the design, the new design of the revitalization. Um, Sometimes the they held like an organic concert, not provided by the mall, but sometimes the street musicians came doing this concert and everybody's like hanging out there like as a quality of space, as a quality space there. So I think I think this four phenomena of the public space are also good information to understand the public space in Jakarta. Another thing, the government built some public space around the stadium monument in the city. Well, our first presidents were a left wing, and he replicate the developments in communism country to build many statues during 50s. The governments made a giant piazza in this monument called Lapangan Banteng. And later on, like 5 years ago, I got involved to make like the extension of this piazza to make like a public space uh, while I was working with Yorianta. Yes, I think the expansion is from here until this half-rounded area. So what I think is this design doesn't match with the climate though. I mean, during the day, the sun heat the piazza really hard. And also, in contrary, for rainy season, can you imagine there are no shades to cover? So what I think is that the huge piazza pretty much doesn't match with the climate condition, you know. So I guess now it's even clearer how the shopping mall are preferable for the people to hang out than a than an open air space, you know, because if it's too open then it's so hot and it could be poured with rain. But if it's inside, it has to be like full with the air conditioning area. So that's what happened, you know, the contrast weather between the inside and outside. Also, it's very hot, so the inside of the building is supposed to have a well uh, air conditioning system. So that's what happened. And so another one is the new public space that happened in Jakarta. So this project called Taman Ismail Marzuki Revitalization by Andra Matin. Well, it's accomplished by one of our most well-known architect in Indonesia. His name is Andra Matin. This area located in the oldest art university in Indonesia. Well, they have hosted many international and national art events, and they also important in regarding to the history of Indonesian independence. Mm. This project, well, at least was built in the recent area, you know, and developing a green area and open space that yet that far still far from better, but nowadays they already operating. The building also become like a public library and also as a public park. It's also a public shelter, a planetarium, and also an art space to host some exhibition. And in the upper part of the building, it will be commercial areas such as hotel and apartments. I mean, in this case, shows at least the synergy between the function of inclusivity and also exclusivity. I mean, between the commercials and the public space are giving to each other. So that's what I like from this building because it's balanced between these two things. And another aspect, which is um, creating a public space in the religion, culture, and sport aspect. I mean, religion, culture, and sport are the organic event for a placemaking in the area. Um, well, as the country with the biggest Muslim population, the prayer and the rituals of the Muslim are considered as the massive activities. I don't know if it might also become a good information also for your project. Like for example, this one. This is Istiklal Mosque by the famous modernist architect Friedrich Silaba, um, built during 50s. Well, this is, I guess, one of the biggest mosques in Indonesia. As the biggest Muslim population country in the world, the activities of the Muslim ritual are considered as the massive group of activities in the whole city. One of them are the Friday prayer. You know, every Friday afternoon, the Muslim has to go together to the mosque to have their rituals, which is the Friday prayer. The mosque of Istiqlal that considered as the biggest mosque in the city, also considered as the one of the historical modern monuments of the city during the 50s. It's hosted this event every Friday afternoon for the Muslim. Sometimes the president is the prayer here. Every Friday, the surrounding of the site will be erected many of the food stalls, temporary food and beverage built area around it. So can you imagine every Friday afternoon there are like the temporary shopping mall around the street, Well, considered as the most massive activities every week. So consider as a public space as well. And that's why I mentioned about this Friday prayer and the mosque. This is the new Jakarta International Stadium. I mean, there are phenomenon happened when during the pandemic, the Jakarta International Stadium now is the biggest stadium in Indonesia, and I think it's maybe in the whole Southeast Asia. So I will tell you about the eight Mubarak prayer ritual. Um, this is one of the biggest Muslim ritual, maybe. So it's called Eid Mubarak. Every the end of the Ramadan, the Muslims are obliged to celebrate their Eid Mubarak after a month of the fasting days, right? So mostly of the Muslim are going to their own hometown. So during the pandemic, the government limited the migration of the citizens for going out of the city. So this is how the phenomenon happened, when they're trying to find like a huge space to do this ritual for the Muslim once every year. So they use the piazza of the plaza of the stadium to have the Eid Mubarak prayer. So, I mean, this kind of phenomenon happen. I mean, if as the organic public space next to the building, they're not, this the stadium, not a mosque. So I think it's also considered as a new public space in Jakarta. And in 2018, Jakarta also hosted as the big sport event for Asian Games. This is the Olympic basically for the Asian countries. In this case, the government are collaborated with some of the well-known architects to develop this massive sports centers area. This area was built by our first president 70 years ago regarding the same events. Well, the revitalization are pretty much well executed, although it's not perfect. At least the sport area and the restoration are the several sports building uh, that still hosted of many events, such as the concert and many sport activities during the day. As you can see, when they don't have uh, the events there, sometimes you're using it for sport activities, daily sport activities, the jogging, the biking, and sometimes they held like a concert there, like any other stadium in the world. And then they use it for a concert. So that's, I think, is the topic of the public space. The third one, let's now talk about the infrastructure needs in Jakarta. Well, it's need another 2.5 land to stabilize the urban structure of Jakarta. But instead of fix it and build more infrastructure, the government are going to move the capital city to another island in Indonesia in 25 years. However, I need to mention two of the main problems with Jakarta overpopulation, which are the lack of public transportation, and also the lack of waste or trash control system. So that's two of them. This is the rapid transportation, or MRT, or the subway train in Jakarta. The subway train, the picture above. The subway train, or MRT, newly operates in Jakarta since the beginning of 2020. That was exactly before the pandemic. Probably is incredibly late for the city that has grew up big population and developments. The other countries in Southeast Asia, such as Philippines, Singapore, and also Malaysia, has already operated their MRT. I mean, since 20 years ago. It's pretty much late for the city such as Jakarta. However, 10 years ago, the picture below, Jakarta already operates the Transjakarta bus. I mean, at least that's the solution that they offer. The Transjakarta bus, which has their own route, the street, like this. Although it's still causing many of the traffic jam and it's pretty much ineffective. At least the bus are still become the main public transportation because it's the price is far way cheaper than MRT, than the subway train. So basically, these two public transportation are the most common public transportation for the people to use every single day in the city. I would like to talk about Gojek and Grab motorbikes. So I don't know if it will be important for your project, but it might be considered because the population of the motorbike are far way bigger than the cars in Indonesia, and also cause of the traffic jam in the city, and also cause the population. So the motorbikes are the common transportation in Jakarta, also in all over Indonesia, because it's far way cheaper. And also the streets are not big. So sometimes they prefer to use the motorbike. So I would love to talk about this product called Gojek and Grab as the new alternate public transport in Jakarta. In 2014, like these two things are invention the public transportation. The name is Gojek, later on followed by the Grab bike. So organically, as the suburban city, Jakarta has many unofficial motorbike cabs or taxi called ojek. I mean, without G, ojek, this ojek. So because it's unofficial, the price sometimes uncontrolled and going expensive. Gojek, as the new application, online application, came as a solution to create an official online platform to organize the drivers and the price. Basically, it's like Uber taxi, but for motorbike. Because of many ownership of the motorbike, the bike itself are cheap, the Gojek become the main public transportation of the city nowadays. So then the color is green. It's like basically the yellow thing for New York cab. This green bike, this green jacket driver with the motorbike are all over the town because it's very effective. But still, it's a private vehicle. It's not a public transportation, but it's considered as a new alternate of the public transportation. Well, this happened because of the lack of, the developments of the bus transportation and the transportation. So at least this is what we have to solve that. Well, another one is the intercity highways. It's one of the infrastructure that's pretty much important. I mean, the highway is supposed to connect it from as the highway is supposed to connect one city to another city, but they even have like the intercity highways in Jakarta just to to directly connect one area in the city to another part of the city because the city is huge. So, well, the intercity highways is now they are also become the main infrastructure of the city because yeah, because I like I told you before, the ownership of the private vehicles are always going up every single year because the government gives the easiness to do mortgage to buy private vehicles. The intercity highways are pretty much needed for the city. What 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 was happening is even in the intercity highways, they are still experiencing traffic jam during the office hour because of the amount of the highways is still not enough to accommodate the amount of traffic vehicles. So the name of the highways is not supposed to have traffic jam, but it's still because I don't know if is it the system or failure or is it not enough to accommodate the amount of the private vehicles? Still don't know about it, but that's what happens. Sometimes they got stuck in the highway for hours during the after office hours. This daily phenomenon again are the main cause of the biggest pollution in Jakarta. That's what happens. Another infrastructure, I think it will be the last one, is the waste. Because the over big population of the city, uh, the waste is the main problem now. I mean this is what happened in Jakarta. The city with over than 10 million people lives on it without a good waste infrastructure. I mean, what happened? What happened with the city that has over than 10 million people without a good infrastructure system for waste and trash production? I mean, what happened with that? To create the slums again, bring again slums, the social gaps about the dirty part of the city, about the clean part of the city, the high society area, the lower society area. Create it could create also many disease, maybe also and bad carbon pollution. I mean, nowadays they put all the waste in this area called the Bantar Gebang landfills, the Bantar Gebang landfills in the outskirts of the city. They don't have enough good processing system to control the waste. So sometimes they just burn the waste. So it contributes again one of the biggest pollution in the city, the carbon. That's what happened. Um, okay, so I guess that's all what I explained. I give you these three things about the natural condition of Jakarta, the public space of Jakarta, and also the infrastructure about what Jakarta needs. So I would like to give you the last question too before you start the project. I mean, how do we clean this mess? What I told you before are always the problems, the lack of well executed buildings, the lack of system, the lack of the amount of things. So I'm sorry I have to say many problems to you, but um, I hope it will be enough information for you to solve some problem, maybe to build the project that's related to the problem that I explained to you. So how do we clean this mess? I mean, is it enough to change political system to erase the dichotomy between the social level issue? Well, it's not an architectural solution, but might work. Or what if we destroyed all the shopping malls, like for example? Um, it could work. Maybe it will be too extreme, but it could work. I mean, for example, we destroyed all the shopping malls and changed the paradigm of the anti-outdoor paradigm of the people. It's an architectural solution, by the way. Or we'll find another land. Well, this is also another architectural solution, but I think it's too easy just to find another land or to build another land. How we solve the problem. I hope I have given you several problems information and also information that might help you with the project. So good luck with the project, guys. Thank you.